My name is Vicky, and I am not a screenwriter. Now, if you're anything like me, you have this drive to tell stories, but it's very hard to deny that the storyteller's life might be a bad idea. Usually, family gatherings are a very good place to realise this, and with Easter coming up, I thought I might give you some tips when you start talking to your family. They ask what you do, what you want to do with your life, so that you're prepared and you can tell them, you know what, I always thought I wanted to be a writer, but now I have some systems in place to keep me away from that dangerous way of life. Now, obviously, I've had years of experience in not being a writer, and these are just some things that I've sort of figured out on my own, things that have reliably kept me from writing. So, without much further ado, let's get into it. Tip number one is do not be curious. Curiosity is one of the major things that will sort of inspire you to pick up the pen when you see something out in the world that you find interesting, that you find intriguing. You want to find out more about it. This is a slippery slope to go down because it means you'll be inspired to write something about this thing. So the best way to avoid this is to just shut yourself off completely. If you see something that might be interesting, don't look into it any further, and just generally keep yourself at a distance from the world. So tip number two is make writing as hard as possible. You don't want any writing utensils lying around. You don't want your word processor on your computer to be accessible in any way. Pens locked away, paper locked away. Deinstall any notes apps you might have on your phone. That's really, really important. You don't want any access to note-taking utensils when you're out and about. Number three is also really important. Do not make writing a habit. Something that happens to me all the time is that I do still pick up a pen and write, or sit at my computer and write something. The key here is just to make sure that this doesn't happen like every day. If you fall into writing every day, it becomes so easy that you will be sucked into just continuing to do it. And if you continue writing, like, you are a writer. So make sure you do not do this every day. You do this sporadically. There is no system to it. Just keep it at the bare minimum. So one way you can deal with this urge to write, and one way you can avoid this becoming a habit, is to just make sure that, obviously you have a busy life, just make sure that everything else that's on your plate is done before you start writing. Number five is something that I do struggle with, and that is you shouldn't take notes. When you take notes, you've sort of made something that you thought, an idea, something that you saw out and about. You're making this permanent. And what you really want to embrace is just letting everything go. You want any experiences, any memories, any snippets of conversations you overhear, you want those to slip through your fingers. Do not make them permanent. Do not make a record of them. Notes will kill your streak of non-writing. Now the next one, again, as I've said before, I struggle with this too, so I do keep notes often. Like, sometimes I just overhear things. I'm people watching, which is also a really bad habit. Do not people watch. It will inspire you to write stories. It's really bad. But sometimes I will have something written down. Couldn't stop myself. And what you can do to sort of minimize the damage that does is to never ever develop any kind of system for your notes. Just let them fly about. Like have random bits of paper crumpled somewhere in your bag, like 50 different notes folders and notes apps on your phone. Don't corral them in one place, and above all, never ever look through them. Like the worst thing you could possibly do would be to like schedule a time where you look at your notes every week or something. Just make sure that if you've taken notes, that you forget that they're there and that you do not revisit them. Make sure they get lost as fast as possible. Point number 7 sort of ties in with the very first point about curiosity. Now, something that gets me into the writing mindset is often when I read other stories, or I watch a movie that I really like, or even watching a movie that I don't like. Listening to music, sometimes a song gets stuck in your head and you think, oh my god, that would make such a good story, or even just a tune that gets into mood for a story, and you sort of start thinking about it. Once you're thinking in that kind of way, it's very, very hard to stop your thoughts from running into a story, and then it's very hard to stop your fingers from typing that out or something. So really, really good tip for me has been to just not watch anything, not read anything, don't make time to do things like going to the theatre or something. Just absolutely keep yourself away from any kind of creative output from other people. Point 8, obviously many of you, as I will have lots of experience with this, I find that when I do watch something, so this goes a little bit against my last point. Obviously you'll have people that you look up to, screenwriters. Like I'm a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin. So if you look at their work, of the work of someone that you really admire, and then you compare your own work with theirs, it'll usually really demoralize you. It's just looking at the people who are at the peak, who are at the top of the game, and then looking at the really, really bad stuff that you put out. It's a great way to just take away your motivation. Some kind of output is almost unavoidable. Like, I do write little short stories, I've written some poems, lyrics to songs, all that kind of thing. I know it's almost impossible to avoid that, but when you have like little finished pieces like this, or even if you've really sort of gone off the rails and finished a bigger piece of work, then it's very, very important to just keep it to yourself. Don't talk to anybody about it. Don't even tell them, ideally, that you're working on anything, because that might then trigger them to ask if they can see something. I mean, you can always talk yourself out of it and say, oh, it's not finished yet or something, but that's dangerous. So don't mention to anybody that you're writing, don't mention to anybody you're interested in it, and don't give people your work. Generally, just keep it to yourself, because if you share work with somebody, they might encourage you to keep going. They might tell you it's not actually that bad. They might even say, oh wow, it looks like you have a career here. You could do this, and you want to stay away from that kind of encouragement. Lock your notes away. Lock your creative output away. Don't let anybody see it. And finally, point 10. Now, something that really helps me are things like birthday cards. Now this might sound a little strange, but bear with me. writing a birthday card usually makes you see how incredibly shit you are at writing. Like, they're these small little things. You should just have to write a couple of words, make it sound friendly, make it sound approachable, make it sound like you know the person, like you really care about them. It's really not that hard, because usually you write birthday messages for people you do care about, right? And usually it'll take you hours and hours to produce anything. It'll be really shit. It won't sound good. It won't be poetic. It'll be really mundane. Things like, "Oh, you're the most wonderful friend I have." Like, everybody writes that. You're not special. Do it as a little exercise. Just write a couple of random birthday messages if like a whole bunch of your friends have their birthdays at once, and just see how unpoetic, uncreative, mundane the things that you have to say are, and then just give up. I mean, at this point it's really easy to just say, like, I have no chance anyways, so why should I waste my energy with something that I clearly have no talent for? And that'll usually do the trick. So with these 10 points, you should be well on your way to not being a writer, to not writing. And not writing means you're not a writer. That'll keep you safe in that way. However, there is one little caveat. I've been doing this, and these things have been working for me for about, I'd say, like a decade, perhaps longer. And like, they have successfully kept me from being what I would call a writer. But even though I live a very happy life, there is this nagging thought at the back of my head that's telling me I might be happier if I were writing. Now, I know that from like most of the things that you hear from other people, that is really dangerous. But I've been thinking, maybe I will try. What happens if I go against every single one of my rules and see how bad the consequences of that actually are? Like, maybe it isn't that bad. And because I think some of you might be wondering the same thing, like, what would happen if I were actually a writer? So I've decided, let's find out together how dangerous writing actually is. And if that sounds good to you, then like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.